So listen, company culture, it's a prevalent topic these days, particularly high performing culture. The question is, how do executives go from the concept of high performing culture being an ideal that's discussed and turning it into a reality in a pragmatic or systematic way? Let's unpack what that would look like. Okay, step one, you need to get an understanding of what the overarching challenge is today that keeps you from being a high performing culture. If you want to become a high performing culture, the assumption is that you're not today. What is it that indicates that you're not? Just start there. Two, confirm your why. Cultural change it's not to be taken lightly. It's a significant commitment, and it requires a compelling reason to put in all of the effort that you need to put in from the top down, you organizationally, not just as the CEO or the executive sponsor. Three, define the culture at a high level. Start with adjectives. What words would you use to describe a high-performing culture? Four, move from adjectives to specifics. And what I mean by specifics are specific behaviors, specific expectations and norms that will be established. Specifically, what will the organization stop tolerating? How will the tone of the organization be set? What specific things will a high-performing organization spend their time on? How will time be spent specifically? And how specifically will you, as a leader in your executive team, model this new culture? Okay, so we've gone from our why to defining the culture at a high level with adjectives, moving to specifics, and then next, habits turn into performance, results, and measurement. So you specifically get clear on the performance results and the ways that you will measure it. And when you do this, you go from culture being a vague concept to being very specific. Now, we've talked about this is at like a planning level, and you have to think about the structures that enable cultural change. Culture is not a fuzzy process. Investments in structures, and I'll explain what I mean by that, are required definitively. What kinds of structures? Well, role design and job design, rewards, incentives, job descriptions, recruiting. How does recruiting change? How does the new hire onboarding framework change to create higher performing culture? What kinds of changes in technology can be made or improved or used? What kind of technologies can be used to support high performing culture? How do you think about performance management at large? This is what I mean by the structures of high performance culture. Now, the process of creating a high performing culture depends on authentic change starting at the top and working its way down. Leaders go first in terms of improving habits, performance, results, and applying measurable accountability. If you attempt to create a high-performing culture without making the highest levels high-performing, it is inauthentic and to an extent hypocritical. And so the entire executive team must be on the same page about all of this: the why, the definition of what a culture looks like straight through all the structures for change. The executive team ideally works with a coach, an executive coach, to help each individual executive model the new culture. Again, this takes time. CEO, executive team, the process repeats going down like a tiered chocolate fountain that you see at weddings and banquets. Throughout all of this, communication is critical. It's a critical part of any change management process. So you have to get clear on how you will communicate what and how. The words and the tone, you will communicate all of this. By all of this, I mean why a high performance culture is necessary, what will be done, how it's going to be created, etc. through the entire process. You need somebody specifically to own the role of tracking the progress, confirming consistency up, down, across. This can be a chief of staff or anybody who can own it outright, but process needs to be tracked. You need consistency. Otherwise, you have certain teams operating at a certain level. You have to partner with other teams that are operating down here. It really creates a significant amount of friction. You likely had that already today. So you want to create this consistency. Lastly, once momentum is built, you need to sustain it. You need to design ways by which high-performing culture will be reinforced and sustained in the language of the company, in the metrics of the company, in all manner of form. How can you sustain and reinforce the change in this process? Look, what we just went through, rewind this, write it down, step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. Those are steps in a process, not the only, but one of many, that can be used to pragmatically and systematically go from using this concept of high-performing culture as something that's discussed and idealized and turning it into a reality. Clearly, it does not happen over a quarter or two. It takes a sizable amount of time, more or less, depending on where you're starting from and the size of your organization. But the earlier you do this, the better it will be, right? If you need that to happen, by that I mean moving from just talking about high-performing culture to making it a reality. And 2, you are legitimately dedicated to making the investment required. And thirdly, you recognize that you need help with this and you want to explore what it would look like to partner with a high-performance coach like myself, give me a shout. As always, I hope this was interesting to you. If it was, give it a like. Share the post with somebody that you think it would resonate with or who you think needs to see it. And with that, thank you for giving me and the topic some of your time and your headspace today. And until our paths cross again, be well and carry on with your dedication to being the most effective executive that you can be. Cheers.